Hello, welcome to the Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to No, damn it! Welcome to Age of Sigmar Mondays. That's the one we're after. Hello, and I'm joined by Nathan Prescott.
Hello. How's things going in the Stadium of Dreams?
I'm not there. I'm at the office of mess.
Of other dreams.
Yeah, more nightmares. I remember something
dreams.
that happened here. A nightmare for many of us. And Dan, we're also joined by Dan. They say he can't be swayed, but sometimes he will be. The man, Dan. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm fantastic. And I am very, very excited today that without the usual dingus who joins us on a Monday, I will probably cop a little bit less shit for jumping boat and having a second army. No, never mind. Already in the chat. Never mind. Couldn't even get out of that without the chat giving me something. So don't even worry about it. Never mind. Let's just start again with Barry White lyrics, shall we? Cheers, you beautiful dinguses.
Let's go. So hello everyone, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rob. Sponsored by everyone on the Wargamer Patreon. We make podcasts for you Hydro homies, but mainly we're joined by the Twitch chat like Stufflin, K-Dread, Gabe, Jimmy, Speckles of all people, Iggy Starhost. Welcome to the show. I'm going to tell you, I'm very excited about today. Very excited. I also have been emotionally crushed over the past few days, but more on that later. However, I'm very excited today because for the first time in a long time, the Honest Wargamer can start being the Honest Wargamer again, which is just lay back and just fucking chill the shit out. Because the TSN is taking all the professional workload off our shoulders, and now we can just be the lads once again, which I'm very excited about. Nathan, have you been bored with all of the serious talk for the past while? It's been a bit much. Come on.
Yeah, it's been chronic, man. I've had a strange itch. I don't know if that's got anything to do with it, but the creams the doctor gave me didn't work. So
it didn't work on mine either. But when we compared ours, they like yours is more reddish around the area, and mine's reddish in the area. So like it's very different.
Do you guys sometimes then just touch rashes and see if like you'll turn into Voltron or something?
I would like to. We'll do that in the future. So, Dan, talk to me. How you been, babe?
Oh, mate, I've been actually surprisingly good. Now, I am once again kind of trapped indoors. Not because of the Coco Vovo, but because of some of you might have heard on the news that there was a little gender reveal party in the States that got out of hand. Mm-hmm. And the smoke from that has turned Vancouver into, for anyone who's seen The Mist, you know, with all of the mist creatures and whatnot, that's what Vancouver looks like. And so apparently we're not supposed to breathe the air. So I actually just haven't breathed anything for about 3 days. Wow. And I'm getting a little lightheaded.
I would be as well. That's intense. I hope you're okay, and I hope Vancouver is okay. And also, if you are planning to do a gender reveal party, just don't. No one gives a shit. Literally no one. I barely care that you're having a child, let alone what gender it is. Yeah, like...
Well, now, the thing is, just about the entire of Western Canada knows that these people had a child. Unfortunately, the smoke that's coming in is neither blue nor pink, so I have no idea what they decided on there. But yeah, unfortunately, it's a bit of a letdown, because now all I have to do is sit inside and think about other people having children. Which is scary for me. It's a terrifying prospect.
Also scary for me. And if we could all just slowly moonwalk away from this entire subject, I'd be really grateful. Thanks. Nathan Prescott.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you be the sound and light engineer for a burlesque show for over a week, and I'm gutted. I haven't seen the after-show party dance moves. What's going on? What you been up to?
I'm taking a sabbatical from the dancing.
Is that because the union? Are you genuinely on the AV technician for burlesque shows union picket line right now? Is that what's going on?
No. We decided to call that off. We thought about it and then we called it off, just in case it got out of hand. You know what happens when you get loads of burlesque technicians together.
Are you guys? You're basically like you all vibrate at like a certain frequency, and it's dangerous.
Yeah, exactly like that. It's dangerous.
But have you been okay? What have you been up to for the past week?
Well, I've been doing a few bits and bobs at the Stadium of Light, or whatever it's called. And so that's most of my hobby, actually, was like building room dividers and plastering.
All for fucking nothing, mate. For
And
nothing.
then-
What's the
for
point?
nothing.
What we should have installed, yeah, is a small grouse cage, yeah, and because Dan, I don't know if you know this, if you aren't allowed in the UK now, or in England at least, you aren't allowed to meet in groups of more than 6. I'm sure you've heard about that. There are some caveats, though, specifically sports teams. We're not registered as a sport officially yet, so can't be done by us. Obviously, religious gatherings. We aren't yet a church, which we also will become eventually, but can't do that. However, and this is very important, if you happen to be, I don't know what the right word to describe this is, a posh twat, yeah, and you go grouse shooting specifically, or hunting, you're allowed in groups of 30.
Well, okay, problem solved there.
Oh, there you go. You got to gang up when you're taking on a grouse. You can't take them one-on-one. They're fucking scary birds.
Now,
apparently.
I'd like to ask, because so here's the thing. Are they specific when they say what type of grouse it is? Because here's the thing. In Australia, grouse just means good or great. They'd be like, that's grouse. So all I'm saying is we just have to say that it's grouse. If
Well,
they've
we
not
could
specified
dress
it's the bird,
Speckles up as a grouse.
Oh, we could dress Speckles up as a grouse.
have 30 people just go out and hunt him.
Yeah.
Good times.
We're having we've been missing out. These
Yeah,
guys are geniuses.
Yeah, we haven't done this properly at all.
Oh, we've missed the boat. Oh gosh, where were we?
Yeah. We could also call a peaceful protest and be allowed to congregate. However, knowing Warhammer players, it never would be a peaceful protest.
No.
Also very much like the attack on Winterfell Game of Thrones episode. I don't know about you guys, but as a Warhammer player, I somehow think I'm also like a polished and practiced tactical genius of all wars. So I watch a movie or the attack on Winterfell, and I'm like, that's not how you use cavalry.
It's true. It's so true. And it's so dumb. It's like I legitimately have the same thoughts, but it's so dumb because it's like, yeah, that's not how you use cavalry. I mean, sure, my cavalry shoot magic and make themselves great and do extra damage against things with one wound. But reality is that's not how you'd use them.
No.
Gosh.
No. I mean, I'd set their swords on fire, obviously, because they're from the realm of fire. Yeah, but that's obviously ridiculous. And of course, you give the dead walkers the first turn. They're never going to make it over. Yeah, and then you got the priority on them.
Yeah, he's got no teleporting salamanders. Gosh, and you know what? Why didn't you take a spell portal, Jon Snow? Why didn't you take a spell portal? Riddle me that.
But it was nice,
dickhead.
I know, right? It was nice to see him taking the Sword of Japan, though, on Arya Stark. That's really important. Yeah.
That temporal shard, Arya Stark, with her sort of judgment did work.
It did work.
And also, very good that he had Emerald Life Swarm, just for, like when he dies to be able to come back.
Always important. Always important.
Always important.
I always thought it was incandescent retrosis, just 3 up. There he was, back with a few wounds, ready to rock. Wait, Yes Pete Paul says, I live in prime grouse territory. The collective term for a group of grouse hunters is a word.
What I would really like is to one day create just a not necessarily a sport, but as something that we can use just as an excuse to go and do stuff. Like when your work invites you to something, or they're like, oh, we've got a work meeting. I'm sure that you could be like, oh, I'm so sorry, chaps, I'm going grouse hunting with the fellas. Like, what could we possibly have that would confuse people and get us out of anything? Like if you say War Dollies, people ask questions. It needs to be high-handed enough that nobody asks any questions, but lowbrow enough that it gets us out without any problem. I wonder if there's a War Dolly version of that.
I guess
Speckles tossing.
Speckles tossing. You could say that we're on military maneuvers. Like,
Yes, that's it.
Military war games. Yeah, just be like, we're playing military war games, and they'll be like, oh, okay, are you with the military? But like, I am the general of a military. That is correct.
My faction would be nothing without me.
Absolutely nothing. I mean, yours would, Dan, because you play elves and everyone plays elves. Got it. There you go, James. That one's for you, you skiver. So James is away today because I'm not sure if anyone knows, but in order to make objective markers, we have to actually mine them in the hills of Wales. So he's there right now, just chipping away at the walls, getting more objective markers down for our future releases. The truth is...
Has he not gone down to a Cornish mine somewhere?
Yeah, he had... why? Because of Cornish pasties? Where's the joke?
I thought there was a reason that he would want to go further west.
I don't... see, if you're making like geography-based jokes, then I just struggle.
No worries. Let's carry on. James might get it.
I don't even know where I am right now. Like in regards to the big thing for me is I've moved to the west coast of a country and I've lived my entire life on the east coast. So every time someone's like, oh, let's go this way, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Like, let's go to the beach. And I'm pointing different directions. They're like, oh, you know where blah, blah is? I'm like, I barely know what street I live on. Like, you're giving me way too much credit for geography. So I'm just going to go with he's in a mine. He's in a mine, probably full of goblins and trolls.
Good.
You're making a Lord of the Rings reference. Okay, the guys in the chat got it. Big shout out to the guys in the chat. Also, I don't know human beings, apart from Nathan and you, Dan, who genuinely point places and go, we'll head west. I'm like... Someone's like, where is it? I'm like, I'll ask Google Maps. And they're like, is it west? And I'm like, shut up. It's not the Middle Ages. Like, I don't need your shit. Right, okay. So, today's show, we're just going to shoot the shit. And I'm very excited about that. I'm excited because with the TSN stuff in the bag, if you will, but unfortunately postponed due to COVID. If you guys haven't heard, it is postponed until we can either turn it into a church, an official sport, the council say okay, or most importantly, we can install many grouse that we miss intentionally. I don't know how much a grouse is, but if anyone wants to send me one grouse, I'll organize a grouse hunt every week at the TSN arena. The grouse will never actually be got. It will be the luckiest grouse that will live to however long grouse is. Yeah.
Can't we just model some grass and use them as the score beans for the tournament?
Yeah.
And instead of earning points, you earn grouse, and then that way you're hunting for grouse.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, that works.
Also, you know what I so hope happens? I so hope happen that like 100 people now send you a bird. Like you just have you end up like you make this joke, but I genuinely hope everyone in the chat, everyone who listens to this show, every single person sends you a live bird, and you have like 100 birds that you need to figure out what to do with.
I know what I would do with them. I would find the local Tory HQ, throw them all in there, lock the door, and then I wouldn't, but hypothetically in this pretend scenario, I'd burn it to the fucking ground. But only hypothetically, never actually would I do that, obviously. Just a joke for you light-hearted Tories
could you
out
train
there.
them?
Huh?
Could you train grouse to be table bosses? Possibly. Just
Scored one.
Thinking outside the box
two.
here. You're like, what turn are we on to? Honk. Turn 1. Yes, good.
Big shout out to Velatron in the chat. What a babe. Hi. And Wolf Priest Kajal. Hello, everyone. Saw the Super Series was really digging it. Question, though, where did you get the cards for the matchmaking? We made them, Swaggy Shadow. We made them, is what we've done. Because we had to make most of the things, which was fun. Okay, all right. So today's show, I'm going to ask Nathan and Dan if they've done any Warhammering or if there's any news. Have you guys got any news in the Warhammer world that you'd like to talk about?
I got sucked down the rabbit hole of Underworlds, the Necromunda game on Steam, so hard, just so hard. Yeah. Yep. And I'm playing a lovely gang of Esches. They're great fun. My 2 combat ladies I called Karen and Sharon because they're always demanding to speak to a manager personally.
Lovely.
and they've outshone my leader by tons. And it's such a fantastic game. Honestly, it is. It's not a perfect recreation of the tabletop game, and I like that.
Okay.
It's taken like all of the heart and all of the soul of the tabletop for me, and it's put it into and like slightly changed it to make it a little bit more, a touch more fast paced, but still like turn by turn tactical. And war dolly wise, I've just still been putting together elves. I got bored of standy elves, so now I'm putting together horsey elves,
Oh, nice.
mixed up with hex wraiths. So
I got to tell you, I love them horsey elves. They look great.
yeah, it's trying to make the thing I am finding tough with these kits is for me converting them all and kit bashing them all is that like I'm looking at them right now is they're very I don't know how to describe it, like lock piece kits. I don't know. I'd say like for instance with the free guild, right? You've got a lot of stuff that you can do where you can trim and cut and remove things and swap them quite easily.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of these kits, each piece fits into the next piece, but you don't have a full side. Like together they make it, but one is through 2/3 of the piece and the other's half. So it's a little harder. And that makes my brain bleed because I'm not a smart man. But we're getting there. We're getting there. Dead elves will be a thing.
I'm very excited to see the project when it comes to peace. Also, Valentron has said that somebody's made Teclis look much better by dropping his arms and lowering his head. I think that was actually done by a friend of the show, Diadrin, or Diachasm as he's well known. Yeah, and that looks really good. It's been nice seeing people finally get their Teclises and starting to kit bash them. I've seen them. I've seen a Teclis on top of a Star Drake. Big shout out to.
Wow.
I don't know if that's been revealed who's actually done that, so I'm going to keep that a secret. But there's some cool looking Teclises actually being produced by people, which is fun. And as negative as I do feel that the Teclis play experience will be, it's still fun to see all those models. I'm a massive fan of the Dawn Riders. I just think they look sensational, like sensational. They're so alive, those Dawn Riders. Makes me very hopeful for cavalry units in the future, to be honest.
I think I like that it looks like a cavalry unit sweeping across the plains, you know, like they're actually charging rather than almost every cavalry unit we've seen seems in some kind of weird trot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, what you mean that like always 1 foot up?
Yeah, or like they don't look like they're actually, very few of them look like they're charging or they're running into combat or they're doing something. They always, if you think about like Pistoliers and that standard human horse, they just look like they're kind of like bouncing along, like walking everywhere. Whereas these look dynamic and they look flowy. They look like everything's moving around them, and I dig it.
Do you think that that's because they're prancy elves and that's how they look all the time? Nathan, thoughts?
No, I agree. They are. That's just they look like twats, but they are twats. But yeah, the horse is all right. The last 2 batches of like cavalry that we've seen, the Chaos Knights, I really like their horses that they've, the dynamism that they show, their movement and everything. They're pretty sweet. I think I prefer them to the elf ones, but yeah, they're both pretty sweet actually.
Yeah, the Chaos Knights are particularly good, which does get me to move on to. I can go from Chaos Knights because they come in the Start Collecting box, which you can also get with the Chaos Lord and Karkadrak, or as I now know him, the Fishmonger. One of the most powerful things I've ever seen play, which is a reference, obviously, to the Super Series that happened this weekend. Did either of you two happen to catch any of the matches? And Twitch chat, did you happen to catch any of the matches?
Certainly did.
Oh, what did you think, Dan? Because I'm actually genuinely interested in what you thought.
I loved it, honestly, and the thing that I found from sitting here watching it, I only got to watch a couple of the games actually live and had to watch the rest back, but I wanted to see it. Like I honestly could have sat in a stand, beside it all, watching it if there was a screen or something like that, and drinking beers and eating burgers. I could have watched it live. And I would have dug that. It was awesome to watch digitally, but it was kind of awesome. And the thing that I really dug was like I got in my head a lot about it was the team aspect of it. So flipping between 4 tables and how important the whole team play experience was over the course of each round. Oh, it got me frothy. I frothed so hard.
Yeah, I think there are loads of things that those fancy lads over at the TSN can do about it to make pick it up a little bit. I think I'd like to see more of that interaction. One of the suggestions that's come in recently, which I think is excellent, is to put in, Nathan, you were at Brotherhood, right? Organised by the wonderful Mr. Chris Tomlin, which is a team event here in the UK. And they had you're allowed a 5-minute timeout. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, so I was thinking of putting a 5-minute timeout in for each team, but then setting up a camera and a mic in a little separate area. And then they go over to there and they'll be like, time out. And they'll be like, we're going to cut to the timeout and see what's being said. And he's just like, you're playing ridiculously.
Put your socks up, boy.
Which I would be...
Sorry, sir.
Which I think I would appreciate.
Even if you didn't have the mic, just the camera footage, because, and for those listening back on the podcast, this is going to be terrible. But, when you're watching like a footy game or something, and then you see at halftime it cuts to the locker room and the coach is clearly just screaming their guts out, like pointing deliberately at everyone, mouth wide open, spit flying, face red, and you can't hear anything. And it's just the commentators calmly being like, oh, yes, he clearly was a little bit disappointed with the way that went. And he's probably telling me that the second half needs to be a little bit better. And meanwhile, this dude is having like a stroke while yelling at his players. That's what I would love to see from T-Sport. Somebody just throwing dice, snapping models. Just
I want to see him silently, or her, eventually with the lady coach. But I would like to see them silently without audio imitating rolling dice as if they're like, roll them like this, you idiot. Just like this, not like this, like this.
Do I have to do everything for you? Interesting one suggested in the chat by Peter Pratt. Put electrodes on all the players and shock them at increasingly short intervals to speed them up. Or, counter idea. They get shocked every time they give up a point. Every time that their opponent scores an objective, you get a little shock. That's going to make you play a lot more careful.
Really change your army builds as well. Really trains. Yeah. So Donaldinho in the chat, big shout out to him, is claiming that Speckles didn't win a game. He did, unfortunately, win a game. So we can't put that out to Speckles. So I don't want to bang on about it too much because obviously you can go watch absolutely everything that you saw there live, and then you can be able to watch the games back and other stuff. But I would like to discuss things with you two, if that's okay, because I haven't really had an opportunity to do that. And one of the things that I found most interesting, and I would like to get your guys' feedback on it, was the fact that it was 3 rounds, and you had people that played each other earlier on in the match, play each other again later, or play each other consecutively. And I found that to be really interesting, because Speckles and Andy played twice. So that was the Oceat Bone Reapers with Catacross, Arcan, and Xantos in Mortis Praetorians, and then 20 of Mortek, 10 Kavalos Death Riders, and a 5 of Death Riders versus Andy's Bloodtooths with his 30 Uruk Ard Boys, his Mega Boss of Maw Crushers, War Chanter, his Weird Boy, and 2 10s of Ard Boys. So they played each other round 1, where Andy won. Spoilers, FYI, for everyone who wants to go watch it back. And then in the 3rd game, Speckles got the win. So he'd worked out how to defeat the army, which was quite interesting, and had done it. And then the same happened in a game between Rick and Dan. So Dan was playing Iron Death Deepkin. Rick was playing an amazing army, Plague Touch Warband. So close to wanting to play that like myself. It just looks great. And then Rick won the first one with because of the Fish Slayer, who just tanked. The Fish Slayer, a Chaos Lord of Carcadrak tanked. He tanked 2 units of 3 eels, and on the charge, and Volturnus. Yeah, they didn't kill him, and then he just one-shotted Volturnus out the world, and then next turn slayed all the fish. It was great.
Oh, oh, Volturnus. Then again, I'm never going to lose any sleep about seeing a Net Deepkin eel spam list go down. Especially to the big boy on the lizard dog, I want to say.
Yeah, like dragon cow.
Yeah, Dragon Cow. That's the happy spot. Uh,
But anyway,
yeah.
my point was, I think I'd like to kind of get to, how do you guys feel about, because it's interesting, like scenarios obviously change and there's factors to discuss there, but how do you guys feel about tournament matches you've played in the past and how you think they would have changed if you'd have had another go? If you'd have, right, now I know what's going on, I could have another go. How do you think they'd have changed?
Massively.
Okay.
I remember at Masters playing the AOS coach. I think it was the first Australian Masters. And it was the first time I'd come up against Free Guild. And I went down hard. I couldn't figure out the rhythm of his army. I couldn't get around it. He played spectacularly, by the way. Like he played a really, really tight game. But I just couldn't figure out how to bust his army up. And I made a bunch of mistakes, either out of not understanding or just feeling the pressure of it. And then the second time I played almost an exact mirror of his army in 2 months later at the next CanCon in round 4 and got the win because that experience against it, I'd learnt where the crux of it was. But then I think that if, for instance, the coach and I had been to play again in that round, like say we come up against each other with similar armies, it'd be really interesting because I'd be thinking about how the last game went, how I would try to beat it. But he's also thinking about the fact that I would know that and trying to look around it. I think it adds a really interesting layer in an individual solo tournament. You never want to really see people playing other people, the same people multiple times. That's not the goal. But in a team event like this, I like it. I love it. I think it's really interesting.
See you later, Hawkeye. Yeah, I find it quite fascinating, and because it made me think about games I'd had in the past, and I was like, well, if I could replay that game, how would I have replayed it? Nathan, what do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, looking back on games, I've looked back on several games and gone like, fucking hell, I could have won that like 90 times out of 100, but I lost it because I didn't see how the army worked and what actually my army could do. But I guess it works vice versa. They also see stuff about your army. So, but yeah, quite a few games I do feel, really confident that I could win that game again and again. But I guess it's good to be able to actually see that chance happening, like you can in this format, and see if it actually translates onto the table.
Yeah, because I do wonder, like, how much, new book coming out, it goes to a tournament, does well, and then, later on people are like, oh, I've got used to it now, I know how to play against it, so it's your first experience, right? I do wonder, based on this, how much that does genuinely affect matchups or generally results, to be honest, because I just think that once you've played an army once, but also there's the way they play. So if you watch the difference between Chris and Dan, because they were also playing like fairly identical armies, right? It was eels with a prime, eels without a prime, right? But they played very differently. Chris was really aggro with his play style because he's running MSU eels, and Dan was a little bit more defensive and structured with his eels. So it's fascinating to watch the same army play, but played by different people as well, because also what you end up with is, actually there's several ways to play, and that like I'm aggressive or I'm not aggressive is kind of I've always played a bit too defensively as a player. Like it's one of my weaknesses that I do know. I always get scared about losing my toys, which Nathan takes great advantage of by just flooding the board early and just always making me feel hemmed in. Yeah, it's like when you've got one of those guys who you don't really know very well, and you're at the club and they just talk very, very close to your ear, and you're like, yeah, mate, like I know it's loud, but this is too close. That feeling is how I feel when I play Nathan. Like that whole feeling generally.
That feeling emotionally for me is when like I used to play against old like Bloodletter Bomb Tyrants of Blood Corn armies, and turn 1 they're all over you, and I'd just be like, I'm very uncomfortable with this. I'm very uncomfortable. Like, I'm not angry. I'm not upset. You've just made me feel weird because your big death swords and your bloodthirster is into my line turn 1. And that has me feeling a little bit fluttery in the loins.
Yeah, that Mega Boss and War Crusher gives me that feeling. He's just like, I'm like, I know that monster can go to 24 inches turn 1. And I'm like, and I don't want it to. Although the one at the weekend, Andy's did fluff quite magnificently in some cases. Rematch is good for seeing statistical variance smoothed out. So it's just meatballs. Darren got every important spell off game 1, turn 1, but did not on game 2, which is actually really important. So yeah, I'm very, very excited to watch those games back a little bit. But I think that was one of those things that I knew I'd put into the format for this reason, but I hadn't realized it would pan out to provide so much interesting kind of conversation. And it was just like, okay, was it the battle plan? Like, what's the difference between Scorched Earth, which was the last battle plan, and Focal Points? Because the battle plans that I chose, if anyone's interested, were Focal Points, Battle for the Pass, and Scorched Earth. But I did retcon or house rule Scorched Earth, so it was a flat 2 as opposed to D3, like we've discussed on the show before, which was really nice. All the players were like, yeah, cool, no problem. Like, no problem. But I did get told behind the scenes, everyone was like, why the fuck did he pick Scorched Earth? What a twat. Hate that guy. Like, why would you choose such a shit scenario? And then I walked around and I was like, listen, lads, it's flat 2. And they were all like, oh, okay, good. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah.
So like, oh yeah, no, I get it now. Yeah, great. Okay, we're fine then. We're good. We're golden.
Great scenario.
Yeah, great scenario. This is fine. Anyway, my point was, I hadn't expected that to be a major talking point, but it was a major talking point. It did make me think about games you play with your mates and how, you kind of know how your mate plays sometimes. And if you could just identify playing aggressive and playing defensive as being, just say they're 2 play styles, and whether or not it might be worth saying to your mate, oh, you should just play really aggressively today. And then if they aren't a very aggressive player. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Did the Eels get to play against each other at all?
They did not.
No. Oh.
No, they did not. But the Seraphon
That
played each other twice. The Seraphon played each other twice in a row.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, that's really interesting to me. I know that some people might find that a bit of a non-event, but suddenly I'm going like, well, the objective changes and everything like that, but learning the tricks of the army, but then it's also how the player plays it. Like, oh, I'd go so deep dive into that. That's cool.
It's cool. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it.
Mirror matches are great.
Mirror matches are great. Question mainly because I've not read the pack. Did the teams know the battle plans before submitting the list? They did not. Although future teams will, because every team playing in a stage will end up playing the same battle plan. So you can kind of see how they're all played out, right? I think is the right way to do it. Just also so people can get used to the battle plans. Like as an audience, you can be like, okay, I know how it works. This is what I do, and then in a different stage, you change it up. Otherwise, because I feel as a viewer having to relearn what a battle plan is every time is a bit of a stretch. It's also a stretch.
Okay,
it's also a stretch as a commentator.
All of the first round. Fair enough. All of the first round are going to be the same battle plan then.
Yes. First stage. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Cool.
I think that's right as well, because it means that all the teams are playing on even footing as well. Like it's not like if it was a game of footy or something like that, suddenly one team gets to play with normal goals, and then the next team gets fire goals where we light the ball on fire and you all get a whip. So that would be, I'd be excited to watch that game.
Yeah, that sounds like a great game of footy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are gonna. So we're going to have to talk about, has anyone got any other questions about the weekend or anything else you saw from the weekend before we move on? Because there is a topic I'd like to discuss. Nathan? Dan?
No, I just wanted to say, I know that other people probably have, but congratulations. It was spectacular. The weekend was amazing. And I got such a huge kick out of watching it. Just the number of people watching it as well. Like I that's one of the coolest War Dolly things I have ever watched. And yeah, congrats. It was spectacular.
Well, thank you. I mean, there was a lot of people involved, more than me, and I'd like to thank all of those people. Obviously, they were. It felt like at this stage, it feels like a community project, and feels like very little to do with. Like, it definitely doesn't feel like a solo project at all. Like, I actually walked away from that feeling, because I was so tired from all the week before, I actually didn't think I put in a particularly good performance. Whereas I would have loved to have seen you just talk over all those games, Dan. Like, the excitement would have been through the roof. You'd have been like, he did what? And I'd have loved to have seen that. Like,
He did a thing. Yeah, I'd have to, I don't know, have a lot of coffee to function. But yeah, next time. There's always next time. The socially distant next time.
Yeah, and I'm gutted that Nathan wasn't there to do like Nathan. He just talks about all the clever shit people were going to do, and I just missed it completely. But they were just great guys, helping with all of it. And it was all achieved with no help from the parent company, right? Like, it was just a group of lads with some wood they found, some cables they nicked. Not actually, FYI. And
Didn't just steal the cables?
No, we didn't. Probably not. Sure. And then we'll just yeah, I know. And we'll improve more for the future. But there's two things I'd like to talk about going on from this, is because I don't imagine how, with a bit of a pause in the Super Series, but most importantly without having to also produce a Super Series, build the venue and a bunch of other stuff, I do find myself with, in my 16-hour days, a 2 or 3 hour gap, which is going to be a delight. I'm very excited about that. And so I'm obviously going to fill that with my hobby and my War Dolly time. And I realized I don't think I have an army I want to play. I have armies I want to play, but I don't know what army I want to play. And I've got like a mix of armies I want to play.
This is an awesome place to be in. That's great.
It's exciting. It feels like New Year, New Me. Only like New Year, just anything, right?
Yeah. Cool.
So
when are you going to start collecting and painting your fire slayers? It's going to be great.
All right, but before we do get onto that subject,
What's so funny?
Nothing. We should have we should have a serious conversation real quick about we should have a serious conversation about something, because we do talk about it on the show, and I'm not sure other content creators will. Although, big shout out to Heywo Twitch, who's just started a new news section, which is very fun, and you should give that a watch because he's hilarious. Can we talk about skinks, Nathan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about skinks before we talk about anything else.
Well, they're like little fucking bananas, aren't they? They're bent as anything. I mean, I haven't had a chance to watch the show, but I'm assuming, even before having watched it, that the skinks did some good work and probably killed a few things and captured a few pots of gold and pissed all over the other team. So if they didn't do that, I'll be very surprised. And I'm assuming that loads more just appeared out of nowhere as well, like the twats that they are. So yeah, they are extremely good value for what you pay for them, if you do decide to pay for them, and when you get them for free, they're even better value.
So would you say, and this is really important, would you say that they're really good value, or would you say that they are monstrously undercosted? Thinking that Marauders that you get in blocks of 20 have just gone up to 150 points. 10 skinks is 60 points. 10, right? If you take 20 for 120 points, that gets you an additional 5 over a 15 cap. And when you have 15, you get an extra shot and an extra melee attack. I've watched those skinks do the most mental shit, and I've only watched them for one weekend this weekend. I watched them teleport. Yeah, Dan, this is absolutely true. Number one, they could teleport in Fangs and Sotex, so ignore that for a minute. Yeah, teleport anywhere, right? They have an extra attack each. They're doing mortal wounds on 6s to wound. They are on a 4-up armor save, 3-up armor save against shooting, a 4+, This is a 240 point unit. A 240 point unit. They then do 80 shots in shooting and then 80 shots in close combat. But the thing that I saw this weekend was they teleported the skinks. My favorite was when Croak and Gotrek went in, and afterwards, still there. They were still there.
You're kidding.
No. And then Croak was on 2 wounds. He had to walk away. He was like, watch out.
This is a bit dodgy.
He's like, oh, wait, what the hell?
They can, and then if they're in Fangs of Sotek, they can stand and shoot, and then on a 4-up, run away. So if you charge them, you're going to take that 80 shots again, if you haven't done any of the damage to them, and then on a 4+, they'll run away. It's a command ability. You need a hero nearby. It's just dumb. It's so dumb. It's like, and I'm sorry, Seraphon players, you know I love you. All hail the Blot Toad. But, like, we're the show. Everyone else would be like, maybe, like, be half-assed about it, or like, they're fine. You know, We're the show. We're the guys who have to say, this is fucking dumb. It's dumb. Dumb. They shoot 16 inches. James at the weekend was like, how big are their lungs?
You know what I could cop? I could cop that mortals can do 6s if ones did a mortal wound back to them because they breathed in and like sucked in the thing or something. Or the other thing is like if that little like blowpipe of theirs, when it's 16 inches, that's a short bow. That's most bows, and that's like that's Iron Drakes.
Yeah.
It's insane. I'm like, but with a little dart that does anyway. But sorry, just to pull it all back, if at least they were like an 8-inch range, then you could potentially charge them from outside of range to keep yourself safe. If they're with a 16-inch range, you could drop your prime 12 inches away, be like 6 charge, and then just be like, watch me die, boys. Watch me die.
It's just terrible. Like, and then a 3-up armor save against shooting. Like, to watch 46 just be like, cool, I've got a 4-up armor save. You're like, what's going on here?
Ow.
Yeah, like
that's Romrel armor.
And someone has to say it, like, and again, my little skink bros, I think a lot of us are okay with it because they're just hilarious tiny skinks, and it's just kind of like, well, if we're gonna have some overlords, a skink is fine. Like, it's kind of fun. But if you have played against it, and I'm sure some of people's friends have, it's super repressive. And they've got a teleport, don't forget. They've also got a prayer, so they can run, shoot, and charge on a 3-up. Run, shoot, and charge. If they're in Fangs of Sotek, they start with a +3 move. So you're like, they can teleport. It's like, doesn't matter. They can run.
They don't need to.
They're like 17-inch movement on the first turn. Then they shoot 16 inches. And that's your battle line that are chaff. That's not your good shit.
And it cost you 120 points.
Well, for 20. You're going to take 40, obviously.
Yeah, you're going to take 40.
Yeah. And yeah, Steven's right. Camo skinks are also terrible as well. But I just wanted to talk about skinks because it came up at the weekend again. It's going to come up in everyone's matches. There was a whole bunch of tournament results from the weekend. There were a lot of Seraphon featured. And you can't not talk about it. It has to be a conversation. And I don't know who else is going to have the conversation other than us. So here we are. Because anyone else who says that they're not absolutely mental is themselves truly mental. I probably should. That's probably problematic language. I should probably have a conversation myself about that. But Nate, you guys got any other thoughts on this? Because they're nuts.
Well, it's just anything that's got the skink keyword as well. So all the other stuff as well. Them salamanders with the skinks in that unit are just like proper triggering. Yeah. When you think about what they do.
I fucking love reminding Nathan about he's like, why are there 8 salamanders in the unit? I was like, don't forget the little skink handlers, Nathan. He's like, yeah, with a 4-up armor save, and he gets so mad. It's the most mad.
Well, okay, but here's the thing with it though, right? When your skinks can move that fast, then it means that you don't actually have to make a decision about your teleport. You're like, cool, my salamanders teleport. My skinks just about fly across the board, so I can teleport my salamanders that aren't that fast. It's where you don't, where the player doesn't have to make choice. That for me is where it loses some of that interest because I'm like, what? You can't mess it up. Like it's the joy of this game sometimes is, and I love going into a game where I'm like, I'm cooked. And then I'm just trying to go all a beautiful mind and create situations for my opponent to make mistakes. And Seraphon players don't really have to suffer from that because what mistakes can you make?
Very few is the truth. But yeah, so like I know like Stephen AOS, he's a great human being and a great Seraphon player. He's in the chat and he's just like, don't forget they actually have so Owen's in the chat also. Big love to Owen Jackson. I think I just saw Owen's name. He was talking about 34 inches is the range of 33-inch threat range on shooting in turn 1 with Fangs of Sotek. That's not with the cogs, that's just their range. And then Stephen reminds us that you can actually have +1 to that if you don't give Croak +1 to cast. So, I think I've laboured the point enough, but it's just, I mean, they're good. They're good if they're not in Fangs of Sotek, because to make them crazy, you only need a Star Priest. That's it.
Yeah.
And if you take the Skink Chief on Stegodon, he's nuts. He gives them another +1 attack in melee, so you end up with a unit that has 2 shots in shooting, 3 shots in combat. So you can end up with 200 attacks out of a 240 point unit, which is just phenomenal and time consuming to roll those dice as well.
Especially if you roll all barrel dice. You imagine if someone rocked up and was like 80 shots.
But with the skinks, it does make the skink Star Priest a big target. Like you said, you were surprised. I mean, if in the ban phase, I think the Star Priest has got to be a target for those people that want to just try and slow the Seraphon pain train.
Down. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also, I think a lot of armies are going to have to look at ways where they can pick out the little guy, because he's not got an awful lot of wounds, but he is a slippery little fella, and he's most of the time he's hiding somewhere where you can't see him. So you've got to have ways where you can take characters like that out, and some armies just don't have access to that. But yeah, without the Star Priests, the skinks become a bit more manageable.
They do, and you're right. But they're also objective grabbers. Yeah, the Star Priest is right up there. Like if you looked at the mirror match this weekend between James and Darren, like the very first thing James did was got Comet's Call off, dropped mortal wounds all over the Star Priest and Priest that Darren was running, and Darren did have 2. I mean, you can afford to have multiple Star Priests because they're
they're that cheap.
They're that cheap. You can just go for redundancy if you really want to. And I'm pretty certain you can use their ability twice. So, like, the ability that gives mortals isn't a spell. It's just an ability. So you can use that on one block of 40 and another block of 40. So, anyway, it just really needs to be expressed just how nuts it is. And it's kind of, I wanted it as a precursor before I just started discussing what army like I might build and paint in the coming few weeks as I start to try and play some games again, which I'm very, very excited about. And if anyone would like to come and play a socially distanced game of Warhammer with Rob at the TSN Arena, please do let me know. Because you cannot, I'm just going to make this statement, you cannot prep for them. There is nothing you can do. There is not, in my opinion, and if you guys have got an opinion that's different, a tactical way that you can mitigate the existence of skinks. End of conversation. In my opinion. If you have a retort, now's the time. Nath, how would you beat them?
Oh, like I said, the Star Priesters, you've got to get rid of those bastards. So you take Seraphon and you kill their Star Priesters. Then you kill their skinks.
With your skinks.
You also take Seraphon skink spam. Yep. I mean, there are a few armies that have a pretty chonky, like, turn 1 shooting output that could possibly do the damage, but I think that's the thing. When Gotrek can go into them and not bring them down, that's when you go, yeah, there's something there.
Yeah, it's wild. Like, it's absolutely wild. And okay, I don't know. It seems to be no one. No one seems to have an answer in the chat. Someone said you can just take multiple. Is the conclusion to just kill the characters? Yeah, unfortunately, you can have multiples of the characters, and also they're behind all the skins, which is the worst place you want to be. You don't want to be near that. KO are one of the few armies that you could potentially build and paint to try to take them out. But the problem is when you deal with the Star Priest, you aren't necessarily dealing with everything else. But KO could be an answer. It really, really could. And this is not me just trying to like wail and say the game's broken. It's just the unit's too cheap. I reckon.
I mean, Sentinels obviously gonna do it with their eyes shut because they don't need to see what they're looking at.
Yeah, they're good. They're good. What are you talking about there? They're really lucky. That's what it is. They're really lucky. It's not skill,
I'll do
it's
these
luck.
mortal wounds on a 5-up, and I won't even look.
And of course, OBR catapults is being said in the chat. I think that's also a really good example of something, which is why I think we saw them banned at the weekend, because to try and stop that particular job being done. But again, not everyone has access to that. You know, I'm thinking about more tribes. I'm like, maybe scrap launchers. You know, maybe scrap launchers could take them out. Maybe
They don't have. They say, God Almighty, they're the coolest models, but jakers. What a point sink.
Squig gobbers.
Squig gobbers. Tenenbrail Shard. That's what it is. A Tenenbrail Shard teleporting in and
gun. Yeah.
Yeah, with a machine gun. Yeah.
Just rip him up.
So I just thought that would be a good